Good morrow, everyone, and welcome to your first step in mastering Avid Media Composer. For those of you who are wondering what good morrow means, it's actually a 17th century greeting that's largely dead now. However, we're bringing it back on this channel. That's happening. All right, so whether you're new to editing or transitioning from another NLE or nonlinear editor like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere, this tutorial will guide you through creating your first project, navigating and customizing your workspace, setting up custom hotkeys, and understanding essential editing tools to get you cutting your next TV show, short film, or feature. Now, I made the switch from DaVinci to Avid Media Composer, which I'll refer to as MC moving forward for brevity, for several key reasons that reflect the industry's expectations and professional standards. While DaVinci Resolve is widely regarded as the de facto standard for color grading, especially in Hollywood, MC remains the go-to choice for editing, particularly in feature films and TV shows. Now, here's why this move matters to us at Night Studios. As a studio, it's essential that we use the same tools that professional Hollywood editors rely on, ensuring we align with the industry standards for high-end productions. Nearly all the films nominated for Academy Awards for Best Picture and Best Editing are cut on MC, and that alone highlights its dominance in major filmmaking. MC editors also tend to earn significantly more than editors on other NLEs. For instance, Payscale.com reports that the median salary for an editor with MC experience in the US is over $50,000 compared to $37,475 for Premiere editors. The highest earning Avid editors make over $105,000, whereas Premiere editors top out at around $53,727. Similarly, Glassdoor.com lists Avid editors in major markets earning over $135,000, far surpassing the $40,000 to $51,000 range for Premiere editors. But why is Avid Media Composer still so widely used despite its reputation for being less intuitive than software like Premiere or DaVinci Resolve? Well, number one, stability. MC is well known for its stability, especially on large projects. It manages massive amounts of footage without an issue. Take it from me, who's been using DaVinci Resolve for almost a decade now. While every software application is prone to crashing, using MC to edit versus DaVinci is far more stable to me, especially when files are moved around after it's been imported. I also prefer multicam editing in MC than I do in DaVinci. Specialization. MC is primarily an editing tool, and in large markets like feature films and TV dramas, editors spend most of their time cutting, while separate professionals handle color grading, sound, and effects, and other platforms like DaVinci Resolve. MC excels at this core function. Collaboration. It's built to function seamlessly in large work groups and remote editors working in offsite locations with tools like Avid's Media Central and Nexus. This makes it ideal for post-production houses where teamwork and media sharing are critical. Hollywood is traditionally a risk-averse industry. Hollywood post-production workflows have relied on MC for years, and because it's worked so reliably, there's little incentive to change. Basically, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Backward compatibility. MC is known for allowing projects from a decade ago to be opened with ease, making it invaluable for projects that require long-term media management. Okay, let's cover some of the basics. Before we dig into MC, I want to quickly discuss the most important thing in your journey of editing with MC, and that's terminology. Let's do a quick rundown of the most important terms now, so we address some terminology for those of you who are new to editing, and some of you who wouldn't mind a quick refresher. First, let's cover the term sequence. While you have never heard of that term in DaVinci Resolve, for example, Avid does use the term sequence as a reference to a compilation of clips, audio, and effects arranged in the timeline. A sequence contains all the media elements, such as video clips, audio tracks, titles in a specific order, and it allows editors to manipulate and fine-tune these elements in a cohesive narrative. Bin. A bin is a digital folder where clips, sequences, subclips, and other project assets are organized. Now, for those of you who came from DaVinci, we use the term bins to organize our assets as well. It's pretty much the same thing in MC. A bin allows you to store sequences, it allows you to store video files, sound files, everything is pretty much stored in a bin. Now you can create a folder in MC, which is different from a bin, and we'll talk about that as I walk through and drive the mouse and keyboard within MC. Bins basically help you manage large projects by keeping your footage categorized and accessible. Now I'll cover my workflow with an MC where I name my bins based on the scene number and take number, but we'll talk about that here in a moment. Clip. A clip is a piece of media such as video or audio that is used in a sequence. Clips can be trimmed, moved, or edited within the timeline. Tracks. Tracks are horizontal rows in the timeline where video and audio clips are placed. Sequences usually consist of multiple video and audio tracks to allow for layering, multicam editing, and effects. So when you look at my timeline within MC, you'll see I'll have different video rows, I'll have different audio rows. Those are all tracks. Markers. Markers are annotations or flags placed on clips or sequences to provide notes, identify specific moments, or flag areas for revision. I'll sometimes add markers to just remind myself about something within a particular clip, draw attention to a particular clip with Kevin, who may be taking a look at that same sequence as well. That sort of thing. You can pretty much use markers the same way you use them in DaVinci Resolve. Store notes on it and draw attention to a particular clip or specific time frame within a clip. They identify specific moments or flag areas for revision. These are particularly useful when collaborating with other editors within MC. The source monitor. Now, just like DaVinci Resolve, you have your preview or your source monitor, and then you have your final monitor. Now, within MC, it's referred to as a source monitor. So when you double click on a video within your bin, you can mark in and out points in the source monitor, and then once you drag that to the timeline, you'll have another monitor that is representative of what's in the timeline. Now, you can switch between the two, your recording or your output monitor and the source monitor. And I will show you how to do that, but it allows you to pretty much separate out the video you may be working on or a sound file you may be working on and marking in and out points. And then once you drag that into the timeline, it then will appear in your final recording monitor. This is the panel in Avid where clips are previewed and edited before being added to the timeline. Now there's a concept of a storyboard within MC, and this is where you can do visual planning within Avid for organizing clips and sequences before detailed editing. Okay, so who's ready to dive in? Let's do this, man! Okay, so I've just started up Media Composer. Now the version that we're going to be using on this channel is the Ultimate Edition because that's what Night Studios pays for. Now the reason why we use the Ultimate Edition at Night Studios is because of the additional features for remote capabilities as well as the ability to share bins and projects. So because I do work with remote editors like Kevin, who works from his home in Tennessee, I want the ability for him and I to be able to do remote collaboration together. So that's why we pay for the Ultimate Edition. If you want to just download Media Composer, you can go and just download the free version and take it for a test drive. All right, so when you load up Media Composer, it doesn't matter what edition you go with, you're going to be presented with the project screen. So let's go over a few of the different things within this initial window. So here you can select your project, right? This is where you would either create a new project, or if you have pre-existing projects in here, you would select that. If you want to see what's new in this version of Media Composer, you can go in and look at all of the historical releases as well as the current one, which is 2024.6. So that's the version that we will be using on this channel, at least until they upgrade it with the new version. But if you want to, for example, go in here and look at the previous capabilities in 2024.2, you can do that. Okay, so that's the what's new section. Let's go back to the select project screen. Let's first talk about user profiles. So user profiles allows you to custom tailor your experience or the layout of windows within Media Composer and save them to a particular profile. So Mel, for example, is wanting to get into learning editing. So I would come in here so she doesn't change my layout of Media Composer. we'll create a user profile for her. So to create user profile, all you do is just create user profile. Now you can choose whether the profile settings are based on the current version of Media Composer Classic, or if you're transitioning from Adobe Premiere, it gives you a more familiar layout. If any of you are coming from Premiere, you can go ahead and set it to this and create your profile. So here, for example, I can go in here and create a new profile called Melissa. And it's going to go ahead and create that layout for her. Now, I am only recording one monitor at a time right now with CleanShot. So that's this current monitor here. But what I do love about Media Composer is it will detect if you have multiple monitors. So I have two monitors right now, the two Apple Studio displays. So here on the left-hand side is the main project window, and on the right-hand side, which you can't see, are my composer window and my timeline window. Now, when we get into the actual tutorial and I'm walking through MC, I will go ahead and share that screen, but for now, we'll concentrate on this project window. All right, so where do you want to actually store your project? The project, unlike DaVinci Resolve, where you get a single DRP file, with Media Composer, it's actually a folder. So if I click this, it will actually show the shadow unit folder where everything is stored. All right. What I can do is I can change this to Avid Projects. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and move that to the trash. Right? So that was a previous project that I had created called Shadow Unit and deleted it because I wanted to start over from scratch for all of you. All right? So I'm going to make Avid Projects my primary projects location. And then I'm going to go ahead and click New Project. And I can, again, switch between my different user profiles. Now, Alyssa Knight is, if you look at the logged in user, it creates a user profile for me, and it uses the default settings. So I went ahead and I created a new user profile called Night Studios. And we'll use that one since I don't really want to make any changes to Mel's profile. Location is where my Avid projects are stored. And for the project name, we're going to go ahead and call this Shadow Unit. Okay. Now, Choose For Me is really interesting. Choose For Me, what this will do is if you're really new as an editor and you really don't know what sort of format you want to use for your project, it's basically the combination of your frame dimensions, your color space, your aspect ratio, your frame rate. If you don't know what you want to set for all of this, like your color space, if you don't know what ACES is or anything like that, you can go ahead and tell Media Composer to choose this for you. And what's neat about this is it will actually drop hints into these individual windows for you. All right, so because I was on set and I know how this was filmed, we did record this in 4K, of course, and that's going to be Ultra HD, and I know the frame rate was 2397.6. So I'm going to set that as my format. My dimensions are obviously going to automatically be set for me to 3840 by 2160, which for those of you who don't know is 4K, and the frame rate of 23976, an aspect ratio of 16:9, and my color space that I want to edit in is actually RGB ACES. And stereoscopic, this is basically a way to create an illusion of depth and three-dimensionality or 3D. So it creates basically a different image for each individual eye. So that's why when you come in here, you can have, you can set either to leading eye, left eye only, right eye only, side by side, over, under, full. So unless you're doing anything with 3D, stereoscopic should be off. And that's pretty much it. There's really nothing else you need to set. And if, of course, you've got a Media Central deployment, you would specify that DNS name here and then your username and password. All right, so that's it. We're going to go ahead and we have no projects created, as you can see. So we're going to do all of this from scratch. So in this series, we are going to edit a real TV series called Shadow Unit that will be going to major stream in 2025. And I am starting from the very beginning. So for those of you who want to follow this series, it's going to be a really exciting opportunity for all of you to edit a TV series with me. So let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so what happened is I'm going to go ahead and walk through these different windows, or different panels, I should say, in each one of these windows. So the window on my left monitor is moving from left to right is my bins panel. Now it will create a default bin for you named after your project. So Shadow Unit is the name of my project, and then it just appended the terms bin and 4K onto that. Now you can name this whatever you want. You can even delete it. It really doesn't matter. On the right hand side is the contents of that bin. So for example, if we go ahead and say Command N for a new bin, it's going to create another bin called Shadow Unit bin 1, bin 2, bin 3, and so on. So if you watch that, if you look at that, I can create as many as I want, and it's going to go ahead and automatically create that bin with that default name and number. And then on the right hand side, you'll see a bunch of tabs, which basically shows you the contents of that bin. So what I can do is, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and select all of the bins that I just created and either hit my delete key, or I can right click and say delete selected items. And there you go. Now it will create a trash bin for those of you who might accidentally delete something. If I want to restore it, I can go ahead and just drag it back up there. No big deal. Look at that. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and I don't want to make it messy. So let's just go, my OCD kicking in. So over time, I've been learning different workflows from different Hollywood editors like Kevin Armstrong, who we're working with on Shadow Unit, as well as Eddie Hamilton, who's the editor on Top Gun Maverick, as well as Mission Impossible. And one of the things that they do is they'll organize their bins by scene and take number. I love that concept of creating a bin for every scene and every take. It allows you to really organize your footage and your sound files, as well as your inserts, and really not just overwhelm yourself with too many video files, too many assets in a single bin. So I used to do that in DaVinci Resolve, definitely taking that same school of thought and doing that in Media Composer as well. So let's go ahead and create different scenes and takes for each. So scene 3, take 1. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know how many takes there were for each scene. So I'll just go in here and just create some scenes for each, bins for each scene. And this I typically just will make a ridge where I'll throw all of my assets initially until they're organized. Oh, perfect. 10. All right. I did not do that on purpose. Okay, so we have all of our scenes now, scene 1 through 10. Obviously, there's more scenes than that, but we have all of our bins all named according to the scene number and the take number, and then our original bin. Now, my favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln is, "If I had 8 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend 6 hours sharpening my axe." So what I mean by that quote is spend a lot of time initially creating every bin for every scene and every take. Now, there's well over 40 scenes in Shadow Unit, so I'm not going to do that during this video. We have our first 10 scenes here for take 1 of each scene, and offline, once I'm done recording, I'll go ahead and create every bin for every scene and every take. That's going to be a lot of bins, I'll tell you right now. However, with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and import the assets and do the original bin. One thing you're going to need to get very quickly familiar with is what terminology Media Composer uses for some of the things that coming from Premiere or coming from DaVinci may have been called differently in those platforms. So for example, the concept of ingesting or importing media into your NLE, Avid Media Composer calls that inputting. They don't use the term import, they don't use the term ingest, they use the term input. So now there's different ways that you can import your assets into MC. I like to use the source browser. And with the source browser, what it's going to do is it's going to show you all of your connected drives. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have the option to say what bin you want it to go into and what you want to do, if you want to link to the original file or if you want to actually import it. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and, because I have a map drive, for those of you who've been following the channel for a while, you know, I have a 25 gigabit fiber connection directly going into my Mac Studio. So I actually keep all of my projects on a NAS called NightNAS01. And there's a mapped folder on that NAS called Projects. And under that in Productions, we have Shadow Unit. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and select these cams. So ACAM, BCAM, and CCAM folders. And then I'm going to go ahead and also select the sound folder. So again, just hold down your command key if you're on a Mac. I think it's Control on a PC. So ACAM, BCAM, CCAM to select multiple folders. Just hold down that Control or Command key. And so I've got my A through CCAM and sound. Now, next you're going to want to specify whether or not you link to those files or import. If you link to it, it's going to just create, it's just going to link to it. It's not going to create any files. It's not going to convert your files. It's just going to link to them. So if you move those files, you're going to break the link to all of them. Same thing happens in DaVinci Resolve. If any of you get those media offline errors, it's because you moved your files or it can't find them. So you can either link to them or import them. If you import them, it will ask you to choose a resolution that it's going to use to convert those files into. So think of it as the same thing as creating DaVinci proxy files. You know how you can create proxy media with DaVinci Resolve and not have to work off of originals? It's the same exact concept. So what it's going to do is it's going to take my original ARRI raw files and it's going to convert them to either ProRes 4444, XQ, DNX, that sort of thing. So I'm actually going to link to the files instead of importing them. And if you click the settings here, you can go further into specifying what MC does when it encodes those files. You know, you can create a shot log, that sort of thing, as well as specify audio, either multi-channel audio. This, if you're using a sound recorder, which we were, you can specify the different channels. So you can get really granular with your input settings here. See, I almost said import. With your input settings here. So here we're just going to go Shadow Unit. I'm going to specify the sound A, B, and C cam folders, and we are not going to import. We're going to just link to those. And this right here is just telling the MC the target bin that you want to store those into. So I'm going to store them into the orig bin, and we're going to go ahead and hit that link button. All right, now it's telling us the file 37B/003 contains a start time. How do you want to start the time imported? And this is just basically your frame rate. So we're going to go ahead and hit that at 2398. And we're going to say OK to all. And it's linking to all of the files. Now, this is not going to obviously take as much time than if I would have imported. It's just creating for example, if any of you are familiar with the term symbolic link in operating systems, it's basically creating a soft link or a symbolic link to those original files within your project. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause my recording and we will continue after this is done. All right, so all of our files are now linked within the original bin. And you can see that up here by this right there. And if we double click on it, we'll pull up all of our assets that are within the original bin. All right, so we have all of our video files from A-cam, B-cam, and C-cam, as well as the files from the sound recorder. Okay, so there you go. Now, one of the things I do want to show all of you are what are called quick menus within the system. So every panel has a quick menu, and the individual quick menu items depends on the panel. So your quick menu items here within the bins panel is of course open selected bins in one window, new bin, new folder, relink. So if you, for example, linked assets and then had to move them for some reason or another, maybe you exceeded the available space on the drive and you had to move them all to a new drive, you'll want to relink those. You can delete the selected items, review file, flat view, add bin to favorites, hide the sidebar, set bin container name, refresh, include bin, exclude bin. So these are the quick menus for each individual panel. If you notice the assets within the bin, it has its own quick menu. All right, so that's it for this video. In this video, we learned how to create and open a new project, create a new user profile. We also learned how to create bins and also navigate around within Media Composer. I walked you through how each panel has its own quick menu for access to quick commands for that specific panel, as well as some hotkeys, which I would urge all of you to learn. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and take the assets that we inputted into Media Composer, and we're going to dive right into the Composer panel and the Timeline panel and create our first sequence. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.